Hi, and welcome to our newest interview for the post-production of the European Poetry Festival 2023. I'm Richard Ettinger, and as a student for English literature and philosophy, I'm deeply interested in creative writing, English literature, and poetry. Welcome with me, our today's guest, the wonderful Stanimir Dimitrov. How are you doing, Stan?
Hi there. Yeah, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for inviting me as well. Happy to speak with you. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Happy to have you here and exchange some thoughts on the progress.
Yeah, that's always great. Yeah, to speak about poetry.
Yeah, I love it. Some words about you. Born in Bulgaria, Stanimir lived half his life in Austria and has recently graduated with first class in creative and professional writing at Kingston University London. He is a poet with performances in Waterstones, the European Poetry Festival, and the National Gallery in London, and he is a professional copywriter. Thank you for taking part. I hope it's all right if I call you Stan, or you want to be called Stanimir?
Stan is always great because a lot of people can't really pronounce my full name, so I'm used to being called Stan.
Okay, perfect. That's why I switched to Richard. My second and my calling, like you have in Germany, the calling name, it's Ulrich. But in England, nobody wants to speak that.
Yeah, yeah, I can
Always
imagine.
Ulrich.
Yeah.
So I got used to it.
Mm.
Perfect. Let's just dive into the questions. First question, it's about traveling. An item that you absolutely must take with you when you travel. What is it?
Uh, well, so I don't really care about if I have forgotten my phone or wallet, anything, as long as I've got my Kindle with me. That's the one thing I always carry around because you just have thousands of books with you, so that's an essential for me. Yeah, as a person who's into writing and books. Yeah.
So cool. Anything you read right now?
Right now, I'm reading Time Shelter by Georgi Gospodinov. He's a Bulgarian author who just won the Booker Prize, the International Booker Prize. So he's the first Bulgarian to ever win the prize. So it's quite a big one for us back home. So I'm trying to read that. Yeah.
Okay. Is it the book that he won the prize with, or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Very interesting. Cool. Maybe I will take a look after our interview. It's always.
Yeah, it's awesome, but also quite philosophical, and you'd really have to like deep dive into it because it's not for everyone, I'd say.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Another question. You've been to the European Poetry Festival this year and you performed.
Mm.
Could you summarize it like in 3 words how your experience was? But if you use more than 3 words, it's also all right.
Um, well, it was quite challenging, to be honest, because for this year I did a collaborative piece with someone I didn't know, and it was part of. So we only did it through email, and we never met until the point we got on stage. So I'd say that was challenging, but also very fun. And European Poetry Festival always makes you feel as if you belong to a community. So maybe the 3 words would be challenging, belonging, and community. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, so everybody who is interested can see your performance with Michael Egan together on, I think it's Steve Fowler's YouTube channel, right? Yeah, so you can see it there. I did it in preparation for our interview, and I have a question for that. So
Mhm.
you start with a comparison between the unavoidable nature or product of the human mind. Um, what exactly do you mean by that? I really like that phrase.
So I'd say I wouldn't I wouldn't really describe what I meant, because for me, poetry is really down to the person. Like it's up to your own interpretation. And what I personally meant in that situation might not have been as I don't know, might not be as powerful as what you probably imagined reading those lines. And the whole point was, so me and Michael didn't really know what each of us was really talking about at some point, because we were exchanging emails, and he was sending me some stuff and I was trying to really get into it, because obviously I'm working with someone, I need to get their style. and and then I would send him my stanza, and he'd have to read it and kind of reflect on it for his next stanza. And yeah, I don't even think each of us really know the meanings behind of each other's. But that's the beauty of poetry. It's really up to your own interpretation. So I'd say you come up with your own in the best way possible. Yeah.
Very nice. I mean, it's inspiring either way, because those words carry for everyone a different meaning, you know. So if you use those and you have like a meaning in mind, not maybe like an exact meaning, but you leave it open in a way, and someone else reads it, it definitely, you know, the imagery may transfer or change immediately. So this is quite interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that I'm glad we've achieved this effect then in you, at least, because that speaks a lot about our work. So yeah.
Right. Did you choose the name Yaroslav,
It,
which is the
so
protagonist, just for the listeners?
I did, yeah, I did. But the whole point of the event was to support Ukraine.
Hmm.
We wanted to obviously incorporate something in our poem
Hmm.
um, that reflects that. And so maybe that strange light you see in the beginning of the poem, there's a strange light that Yaroslav sees and says to Ludmila, you know,
Hmm.
and and that's something that I wanted to incorporate really badly, to be honest.
Hmm.
Um, and then talking about the meaning, you know, that light gets transferred into a sound, and into a darkness as well, and those are quite beautiful movements between different feelings. And yeah, that's as much as I'll say without spoiling the interpretation here.
Yeah, yeah, no, beautiful. I mean, I was asking about the name. Sure, it's a Slavic name, and the
Mm.
meaning I found out is beauty of spring, and in connection with what is going on in Ukraine, the war, and yeah, a
Right.
character in the poem, you know, a lyrical persona. Uh, it could definitely be interesting, but that's again, you know,
Yeah,
you wrote something, maybe you had it in mind subconsciously in a way, and I do read it, and I think, okay, I need to look it up. I look at it, and it's somehow fitting. So I really like
that,
that.
that's really good you're pointing it out, because I personally didn't know that.
Hmm.
Um, but Yaroslav just sounded right to me, and now that you're saying it, maybe subconsciously it just made sense for those reasons. And there you go. That's even more beautiful then.
Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so everybody go watch it if you're interested. I think it's a very nice poem you did together with Michael Egan, and coming to a different poem that wasn't part of the European Poetry Festival, but you did it at the National Gallery. And
Yeah.
it's about a painting, but I think you can explain it the best way yourself.
Yeah, so the idea of that event was to do ekphrastic poetry, which um, I think translated from Greek means based on a painting, for example. So we at first we just went to the gallery, we looked around different paintings, and this is the one that mostly grabbed me. And there were a lot of emotions there, like, because back home in Austria, this pretty much is the view I have from my balcony. which is surprising because the painting itself is based on a valley in Switzerland. But I mean, it's the Alps. It's almost the same everywhere. And there were different versions of that poem, but at some point I just decided to go with my Bulgarian village, which I haven't visited in over 10 years, but it's always in my memories. And so the whole poem talks about that village in a deeper way, if I can say so, yeah.
Okay, very interesting. So would you say it's like semi-autobiographical, because in the end you point out a tradition you still haven't lived. So how does it connect?
It is probably mainly biographical, to be honest. I if you watch the video, the video recording of the performance as well, we've got someone describing the painting, and I pretty much tell her I don't believe you, that's the truth. And let me tell you what I think the painting describes in a few words. That's the poem. And because that's what I saw in that painting. I just saw my village and all the beautiful memories I have with it. And then at the end, that tradition, it can never leave you, you know. Traditions can, in a way, never leave you. And that's one topic I always love having in my poetry. Um, that's a part that makes you you, you know, regardless of whatever nation you come from.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if it is incorporated in your identity, and that's what tradition in
Quite
your,
literally.
yeah, it is always. So yeah, basically, yeah, very nice. And how was it for you to, like, I mean, this is something you are telling about, like your past, your memories. It's like a mixture of all of that. But to write about art, like the process, would you like really study the picture? Would you like go through what Ferdinand Hadler, which is a painter of the painting, would you go through that, what he meant by that, or you just like went through it and said, okay, that's connected to what I know?
So the whole point was not to know what the painting was about.
Mm.
I didn't really know that it was Switzerland until after I read the poem. Um, because if the whole point was just to write about what we feel looking at the painting and what the first thing that comes to your mind is. And so I connected it to my village, I connected it to my memories, because I would say that's the prime topic of my poetry, more existentialism, kind of, yeah. And that's what I connected with the painting. And if I had read what Ferdinand Hodler might have meant with the painting, it might have, in a way, influenced what I write about. So yeah, I just went blindly with the whole process and just looked at the painting, and that's it. Right.
I think that's a brilliant way of dealing with those inspirations, because you just, I mean, dive into it. You look at it. You have, it's like a blank canvas in a way that, you know, the paint
Exactly.
is then projected on yourself, what you feel with that, and then you can like build up on that and just create something yourself. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, as I said, it would have been influenced in a way, and then it's not purely your work, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's important as well.
Yeah, I had an issue when I was studying T.S. Eliot last year, and I
Mm.
just interpreted one of the four quartets, and I just like, oh yeah, I exactly know what he means by that. And then I
Mm.
gave this paper to the professor, and he said, you should consider the historical background and some more about Eliot's autobiography. And I said, oh yeah, I should maybe.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not a painting. It's more like, yeah, I don't know if something is like written in such a profound way and with so many archetypes, you know, it's like it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, those are analytical works in a way that already set in stone. Um, yeah, and that's a whole different process where the whole idea, as I said, was just to go in blankly and produce that piece.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay, coming to our next question. What are some of the main messages which you inscribe into your poems?
So it's always different, but I'd say as I said, primarily it's existentialism in a way. It's a more personal kind of existentialism though, because the way I understand existentialism, it's about us believing we don't necessarily have a pre-written destiny, and we just let ourselves build that life through various different things. Whereas I might believe in destiny, I might not, and I do like writing about everything that makes me myself in a way, locations, family, experiences, sexuality, family, and just everything that makes you you, and also some other things that I really love, which are, for example, marble sculptures. I don't know why, but I admire them. So in some of my poems, they just appear in the poems. I don't even think about them. But yeah, I would say those are the main topics that I almost always discuss.
Are there like
Yeah.
any authors that you would say they inspired me the most or something like that? Or...
I maybe poets from the beat poetry, the beat generation, maybe like Harold Knowles, Dennis Cooper. Those are quite big, and some of their works are quite rare to find. So that's why you'd have to spend a lot of time with my location in London at the National Poetry Library. But once you find those gems, they're wonderful just to have. And yeah, definitely the beat poetry.
Very cool. Yeah, sounds interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, so another question that I have prepared for you. Written poetry versus poetry read out loud, like, performed poetry. Is there a difference for you?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Um, but it also comes down to how the performance goes in a way, because written poetry is really up to your own interpretation. We all have a little voice in our heads, and when you're reading a poem, you read it at your own pace. You pronounce words differently because I've I've noticed we all have a dialect in our heads in a way, which is something that not many people consider. But yeah, those things are very important when you read a poem, and and then once you hear it read out by the poem themselves, it's a quite different experience because you, in a way, you get the poem how it's meant to be read by the poet themselves. But again, it's poetry's interpretation to me, so it's beautiful in both written and spoken version. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, imagine the writing progress. Uh, would you say, like, when you're in it and you know that's a poem that will be performed, you would choose like different words or different order or something? Or, yeah, is it different to a poem that you just write for yourself, maybe?
um no, to be honest, if it's a performance poem and I know I'm going to be performing, I would add some little elements in there that will contribute to the performance itself. um like, for example, the ekphrastic poem in the National Gallery, I had air caps at some point, and I really wrote that in the poem itself, air caps. But because I know no one's actually going to read the written piece itself, it's just a performance poem, and that's going to stay as it is. See, you've seen it on YouTube, but probably never read it anywhere because it's not available. So yeah, there's definitely a change of how you write things, in terms of if it's a performance poem, you would help yourself with these little elements. If need be, you know. But a written poem needs to be more polished in a way, yeah.
How is
At
it
least,
like? Sorry.
I'd say, at least in my opinion, you know,
Yeah,
everyone's
sure.
different, so
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. How is it for you to like write for yourself? Or do you write for yourself, or is it like every poem that you do, it's like, okay, I will publish it at some point, I will read it out at some point, or do you just like maybe do it on your own? Like,
Yeah, I do write for myself, and there's a lot of poems that probably no one's ever going to see from mine because they could be quite personal, and I just want them for myself. I've written them for myself, for example. Um, the My whole journey when I started out with poetry was with haikus, for example, back in COVID time, so quite recently, and I started doing it as a way of capturing my emotions during that time because I didn't know how to deal with them. There was quite a lot going on around me, so and those haikus will always be there to remind me what I've been through, but I'm not necessarily sure that I want them to ever be published, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. I mean, writing can be also like helping yourself in a way. I mean, I know for sure because I also do write a little bit. Sometimes it's even like a therapy, you know, just sit down, blank page, start writing, and it's like, you know, pouring yourself out in a way.
I was going to say the same thing that actually because that's what I was trying to say with the haikus. That's the whole thing I started doing, and then I had two amazing lecturers at uni who saw that I was interested and helped me to develop this love for poetry and start performing and getting published. And that's how the whole journey started as a therapy in a way. And now it's just a really strong passion. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Okay, coming to our next question. I mean, we talked a lot about what writing means. What does culture means for you? Like, I mean, writing in a particular way. At some point in one of your poems, I think it was Bulgarian that you incorporated. Is that true?
There are some cases here where I've done Bulgarian as well. Yeah.
So how does it feel for you? Do you also write in Bulgarian or only English? Maybe some German even?
I don't I've never actually written a whole poem per se in Bulgarian, because I've always felt most connected with English as a language in terms of writing. I do speak Bulgarian on a daily basis, in German less so, but I still have big love for the two languages. And when I see fit, I try to interpret some Bulgarian and German word, sorry, into my English poetry. And I believe that's important for myself because, again, existentialism, that's what makes me me, my past experiences back home in Bulgaria and Austria. And so those are very important things for me to always have in my poems to show who I am in a way. Yeah, so quite important for me, yeah.
Yeah. So you would say like English is like kind of a vessel for you to bring out everything that also comes from Bulgarian, from your time in Austria, and just mixes into like what you produce as a writer, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because I don't know why, but for some reason I can express myself the best in English. Even though Bulgarian is my mother tongue, I can still find better ways to express myself in English. And it's always been like that. And that's why I think my strongest poetry options are English. Yeah.
So would you also say, being at the European Poetry Festival this year, that poetry is a good medium to connect between cultures?
Definitely, yeah. I've heard some German poetry as well. There were different events, you know. with Austrian poetry, Swedish poetry, obviously English as well. And there's people coming in, and that's another thing, that the beauty of the European Poetry Festival, because there's so many people coming from different countries, and with them they bring history, you know, and different cultures, different languages, and all that coming into these events with poetry. That's where the culture mixes, and you can learn so much. Even though, again, it's we all interpret poetry differently, but there's always a specific meaning behind specific words that we all kind of take home with us, and you do learn a lot about different cultures. And I think poetry is brilliant to do that, just to make sure cultures connect. Yeah.
I mean, if you bring together cultures and through like poetry, because poetry, it can rhyme, it doesn't have to rhyme, but it has somewhat of a melody in it, I guess. And that's what maybe makes it also more accessible to people, you know, from different languages, from different cultures. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
About the rhyming, I did think the rhyming had to be a core element in poetry back in the day. And I think that's a big misconception that people have. But poetry can be anything. And I know that's a vague thing to say, but it quite literally can't be anything. And in terms of the melody, yeah, I do think poetry has a specific melody in it. But again, that's the thing to me. I'm so open-minded about these things that I only speak for my own experience, and I say it depends how you interpret it. I know I'm repeating myself there, but that's really what I believe here.
No, definitely. I think it's important to have this openness, you know, to be able to walk different paths from one and the same point, and everybody can do it when perceiving those lines or maybe even art. Yeah, interesting.
Definitely, yeah.
So yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Now you have time, if you have anything to plug, like is there anything upcoming? Will you be performing somewhere?
So in terms of performances, I don't have anything set in stone yet. I have a couple of events that I might be performing at, let's say. We do have an exhibition coming up, which is about alertism. It's all going to be online, and it's it's I think it's made by Alban Low from Samson Low Publishing. It should be somewhere on the website, and the whole idea is that if you've heard about the UK's alert that went on the phones at a specific time, specific date to alert people. So the whole idea is to write these alerts and send them out to people, and they will then reflect on what they felt through these alerts and get it back, which is quite brilliant because I've never seen anything done like it. It's all online, I think over WhatsApp as well. So it's a mixture of poets trying to send out alerts to people and these people reflecting on these alerts. So it's a interactive exhibition as well, which is quite brilliant. And if you can, make sure you participate so you get all these alerts and reflect on them as well. We'd love to hear what people think about what we've written as well. Okay. Yeah.
I think we will display the website under this video. So
yeah, I can send it to you. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, if anybody wants to join that, do it. Yeah, any social media where we can find you?
So only Twitter for now. I'm trying to build a website, but it's a slow progress for now. So Twitter would be at Stanimir HD, and that's where I mostly retweet things that I'm participating in and sharing here.
Very
Thank
cool.
you for asking. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Stan. I think that was a very, very nice episode, and hopefully to continue that conversation and see you soon.
Yeah, thank you again for inviting me. It was nice to talk about all these things. Happy that people are interested in them. So yeah, thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.